Assalamualaikum and very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our forum that is organized by Class 4 BMMP under subject Engineering, Ethics and OSH. I am Badri bin Sofyan. It is my pleasure to be moderator for this forum on the title, The Role of Occupational Safety and Health Regulations in the Workplace. First of all, may I introduce to you all our guest speaker from the Class 4 BMMP, which is Mr. Masfa bin Majuhi, Mr. Muhammad Fikri bin Muhammad Nasruddin, Mr. Muhammad Hariza bin Abdul Razak, and Mr. Muhammad Rizwan bin Azizi. As we know, the way OSH management is implemented is very important. There are two acts bonding all organizations in Malaysia in order to ensure the workers are being protected from all risks coming from the workplace hazard. Factory and Machinery 1967 and Occupational Safety and Health Act 1994. Mr. Fikri, can you briefly explain about Factory and Machinery 1967 and their objective?
Okay. Thank you to our moderator, Mr. Badri, and the organizer who has invited me into this forum. About the Factory and Machinery in 1967, it's actually an act to provide for the control of factories with respect to matters relating to the safety, health, and welfare of persons therein, the registration and inspection of machinery, and for matters connected therewith. In the FMA 1967, it included 6 parts with 59 sections, and it also have 3 schedules, which first schedule is dangerous occurrence, second schedule serious bodily injury, and third schedule notifiable occupational diseases. This act applied to factory only. Why is factory? Factory refers to places where persons are employed in manual labor related to making, altering, repairing, cleaning, and similar activities carried out for the purposes of trade or business. This act does not apply to premises used for housing vehicles, where only minor cleaning and repairs are carried out, such as car workshop, or to any premises that employ 5 or less persons. The objective of this act is to control of factories' operations with respect to safety, health, and welfare of persons. We also control registration and inspection of machinery. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your explanation, Mr. Fikri. Then, Mr. Rizwan, for the Occupational Safety and Health Act 1994, can you explain about it and their purpose?
Okay, first of all, I would like to say thank you to the moderator and organizer who has invited me into this forum. For the Occupational Safety and Health Act 1994, it has a long story. Okay, there is evidence of occupational safety and health as far back as the time of the Egyptian pharaohs. The Code of Hammurabi, circa 2000 BC, contained clauses that could be interpreted as early attempts at workers' compensations. There is also evidence of concern for safety and health during the time of the Romans. Milestones in the development of the safety movement in the United States include the following. First, recorded safety program in 1892, creation of the Bureau of Mines in 1907, passage of the first effective workers' compensation law in the United States in 1911, and passage of Occupational Safety and Health Act in 1970. Okay, the organized labor has played a crucial role in the development of the safety movements in the United States. Particularly important was the work of unions to overturn anti-labor laws inhibiting safety in the workplace. tragedies have changed the face of the safety movement at different times in the United States. The Hawk Nest tragedy, asbestos mines, and Bhopal disaster are examples of such tragedy. The safety and health movements today is characterized by professionalization and integration. The safety and health team of a large company may include an industrial chemist or engineer, radiation control specialist, safety engineer or manager, occupational nurse, counselor, psychologist, and dietitians. New material processes are introducing new safety and health programs, making the integrated approach a practical necessity and promoting growth in the professions.
Thank you, Mr. Rizwan. Then, Mr. Harizul, can you explain the evolution of OSH legislation in Malaysia?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Badri, for inviting me into this forum. Okay, for your information, to my forum member, the first evolution of occupational safety health in Malaysia was 1844 British legislation and specific safety and health, a piecemeal legislation and regulation for the example transporting machinery on the train. And after that, the legislation in Malaysia was changed to the Factories and the Machinery Act, bracket 139 in 1967, Part 2 Safety and Health and Welfare, enforced 1970. That consists that in 1970, the Factory and Machinery Act and 8 regulations under the Act were enforced. This Act was legislated to overcome the weaknesses in the Machinery Ordinance 1953. They were not protected if they are working in a workplace that doesn't use machinery. This legislation was made considering the fact that the Factory and the Machinery Act 1967 only covers occupational safety and health in the manufacturing, mining, quarrying, and construction industry, whereas the other industry are not covered. Once more again, the legislation Malaysia was changed into the occupational safety and health bracket 514/1994, which is the purpose of Occupational Safety and Health Act 1994 is to promote and encourage occupational safety and health awareness among workers and to create organization along with effective safety and health measures. Okay, that's all from me, Mr. Badri.
Okay, Mr. Harizul, thank you for that explanation. Maybe Mr. Asfar wants to add some point about this topic.
Yes, I have a few points that I want to add. Before that, thanks to Mr. Badri for the moderator. The purpose of OSH is in Malaysia is to secure the safety, health and welfare of person at work against risk to safety or health arising out of the activities of person at work. To protect person at a place of work other than person at work against risk to safety or health arising out of the activities of persons at work. Next is to promote an occupational environment for person at work which is adapt to their psychological needs. Then is to provide the means whereby the associated occupational safety and health legislation may be progressively replaced by the system of regulation and approved industry codes of practice operating in combination with the provision of this act designed to maintain or improve the standard of safety and health. I think that's all from me, Mr. Badri. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the additional point as be given by Mr. Asfar. Okay, we move into the next topic, which is the rules of OSH legal requirement, which is Mr. Fikri. Can you briefly explain about this topic?
Okay, rules of OSH legal requirements. So, in Safety, Health and Welfare at Work Act 2005, number 10 of 2005 requires the employers to manage and conduct their work activities in such a manner as to ensure the safety, health and welfare of employees. The risk assessment is carried out by the employer or person in control of the place of work. Transport hazards that exist in the workplace must be assessed. As part of this risk assessment, and appropriate steps taken to eliminate or reduce any risk found.
Okay, thank you very much for the interesting forums. Now, if anyone has any question, I am sure Mr. Rizal would be pleased to answer them. Please direct asking the question on the comment section, or you can direct WhatsApp me by using my phone number on the comment section. So we wait for participant to asking us a question. There are so many questions that's been asked by participants. So you can see the question that has been asked. For the question 1, is this where is this? Okay. Is it acceptable that the workers must pay themselves for their personal safety equipment? This question that has been asked by Mr. Muhammad Alif. Okay, for the next question. Is it acceptable practice for the company to fire the workers on the spot without a second warning for the failure to wear PPE? Okay, this question by Ms. Fazura. So, we continue for the answer by Mr. Rizal. Can you explain about this question?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Badri. Okay, for the first question, is it acceptable that the workers must pay themselves for their personal safety equipment? Companies are urged to maintain the highest standard of safety and health in the conformity with the national requirements. Adequate protective clothing and protective equipment are also important for the prevention. They should be provided wherever necessary and free of charge to the workers. Workers and their representatives should be provided adequate information on safety measures to be taken and given appropriate training. For the second question, the second question is it acceptable practice for a company to fire a worker on the spot without a second warning for a failure to wear a PPE? A worker should not be fired for misconduct that under national law or practice would justify termination only if repeated on one or more occasions, unless the employer has given the worker appropriate written warning, while an employee may be validly dismissed for his or her misconduct, such as the violation of work rules related to safety and health. Steps should be taken to ensure that employees are aware of their obligation and the consequence of violating the work rules. Okay, that's all from me, Mr. Badri. other question to ask?
So that's the last question. So thank you very much for answering all the questions that has been asked by participants. So, Mr. Rizal and the other guest speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for the active participant in this seminar or forum. I hope you enjoy the program and have a nice day. Goodbye.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye.